I'm going to bring up Kelsey Doherty, Sarah Gardner, and Nick Wilson. You guys can join us up here, and they are going to walk through three amazing social media examples of how they cut through the noise this year. And then we're going to have a roundtable discussion. I hope you all will head into live chat. Get ready to ask your questions. We're going to have a lot more time for Q&A during this session. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and pass it off to Sarah. Sarah, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here as well. So in case, just as a quick intro, my name is Sarah Gardner. I am a manager of audience development at National Geographic. And I have the very fortunate task today to talk to you about dinosaurs. And so I get to take you through kind of one of the most exciting campaigns that we did in this past year. And this was just in October. So before I get into kind of the social specific strategy behind this, I just want to tell you a little bit about the story itself. And the gist is this: science has learned more about dinosaurs in the past 25 years than we have learned in the previous 250. And yet all of these new discoveries and new knowledge that we have never really quite made it to the mainstream. So you think of Jurassic Park and what you think of in pop culture when you think of dinosaurs, it's not really up to date. And so this magazine was the cover story, and it was really all about how do we really help people rediscover and fall in love with dinosaurs all over again, and relearn everything that we have learned in the past couple years. So to take you through how do you bring a magazine story to life across social platforms, well, one of the things we really focused on was engagement. There's a lot of different goals we could have gone with as a magazine and a publisher in the media industry. You want new readers and you want subscribers, but we knew that for a moment like this and for a story this cool, we really wanted to focus on that audience engagement piece. So to do that, one of the colleagues of my team, her name is Lena, she orchestrated an entire week-long social takeover across every platform that National Geographic publishes on, and took apart each piece of this story and really broke it down and found really exciting, interesting ways to tell little pieces of this story across social. It was everything from a daily quiz on Twitter using the poll feature to our Instagram posts, of course, a gallery of illustrations on Reddit, a Twitter moment, and lots of live Q&As, videos, and experiences with some of the scientists and some of the experts who really are credited with all of these new discoveries. And I have a quick little video clip that just takes you through kind of what this would have looked like to someone seeing the campaign for the very first time. We worked with the National Geographic Channel team, who has all kinds of production power behind it to produce that little spot. There was a couple different versions of that video that we could use across different social platforms. In this example, we were using it on our Facebook story. And we also used some other things like the illustrations for a dino fact of the day on the Facebook story as well. So that's just a little bit of a taste of how we broke out all of these different pieces across different platforms. And the other thing that was really important to us with this campaign was really about getting out of the way, letting the science speak for itself, letting the creators and the scientists speak for themselves. Because one thing we've found at National Geographic on the social team is that some of the best, most genuine connections we can make with our audience is when we let someone else do the talking, whether that's the writer, a photographer, or in the case of this story, paleontologists, paleo artists, the writer of the story, and even people on our own staff. So my favorite example, I think, from the entire campaign was this first screenshot of a Twitter thread, which is a Q&A experience with two paleo artists whose entire profession is about bringing dinosaurs to life through art. And so it's not only introducing this kind of incredible STEM career to our audience, but also letting them see kind of the behind the scenes and the process of what it's like to contribute illustrations to National Geographic magazine. So that one is a personal favorite of mine. It was really incredible, and the artists themselves were also so happy to be part of our campaign on social that they shared it. Every scientist that was interviewed by the writer shared this on their own social. So it was kind of a great like ambassador moment. You also will see in the very middle a Reddit Q&A that was live. It's a live video experience called RPAN. And this is the writer of the story named Michael Greshko. He is an incredibly charismatic and incredibly smart person. And the beauty of this Reddit Live was that he could seamlessly pivot from the kind of casual joking like questions like which dinosaur will win in a fight, and also immediately pivot back to the science behind like some of these new discoveries and back up his answer with some incredible tidbit that you never would have known if you hadn't stumbled across this video. So in the interest of time, I'm going to, end with just one more thing, which is that, I've been so inspired, been tuning into a couple of the other sessions today, and one thing that strikes me is how often, a lot of brands can use the power of real-time moments and storytelling and visuals to, fuel their social accounts and ambassadors. And what I would point out in this example is that you can have an equal amount of impact by really using proactive planning and using a long time frame and creating your own moment. And so that's really kind of what the heart of this campaign was about, was really just, how do we cut through the noise in October of 2020, the craziest year of all time, and how do we do that? And it was really just, let's go all in. Let's use every, available resource to us and create our own moment for our audience. So I'm excited to pass it off, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was so great. I know we could talk dinosaurs literally all day. I want to hand it off to Nick. I love your insight at the end there, Sarah, about, creating your own moment. And I'm excited for Nick to share this example where, they were expecting to have this moment of graduation, and then they had to completely pivot and create a whole new kind of vibe and a whole new moment. So Nick, we'll hand it over to you to share your example, and then we will throw it over to Kelsey and then have a little discussion at the end about some of the lessons learned from some of these campaigns. Nick, I'll let you take it away.
All right, can you see my screen?
Not yet, so you are gonna have to accept that prompt, I think.
I don't have a prompt.
To throw it back over to you. Let me know. Yep, looks like Yoav's going to send it back over to you in 1 second. There we go.
All right, cool.
Perfect.
There we go. Perfect. All right, so howdy everyone. My name is Nick Wilson. I am a social media manager at Texas A&M, where the official greeting is howdy, so it feels wrong not to start off with that. So this year has been really weird, and that's not something I need to tell anybody. In our personal lives, everything is up in the air. Everything is different than we want it to be, really. And with social media and in our professional lives, I feel like that's also the case. Everything that we knew we could plan on, all the things we planned for, all the events that we had upcoming that we knew exactly what we were going to do, all that was out the window. And so around the time that COVID popped up and these things started changing, we had the biggest event of our year at Texas A&M University. For a school, the purpose of a school, in my idea, is to educate students and graduate them and get them degrees. And our biggest event, obviously, is graduation. We could not host that in person this year because of everything that was happening. And so we kind of had to scramble a little bit and figure out what can we do in lieu of a normal graduation ceremony. So these times when everything is kind of thrown out the window are your opportunities, I think, to experiment and try something new and try something fun that is different than you've done before. Take a little risk. It might work out. It might not. For us, our new idea, our new risk, our experiment, it worked out beautifully. And what that was basically live streaming our graduation, or live streaming a substitute of our graduation on our social media channels. If I told you that Our idea was to live stream for 7 straight hours. You would think that's not a good idea. That's terrible. Nobody's going to watch a live stream for 7 hours. Social media algorithms aren't going to like that. That's not what people are looking for on social media. They're not looking for 7-hour long videos. But I think the numbers really show that it was a risk for us, because that sounds ridiculous, but I think 536,000 views really speak for themselves there. So basically, we are one of the largest universities in the nation at Texas A&M. We have about 70,000 students, which sometimes on social media feels like you're running a small town. We had 10,796 students expecting to graduate in May. And we are one of the first schools to have to figure out, we were one of the first schools to host a graduation this time. So we had to figure out, without being able to look at other schools and see what they're doing, what is our best option? What can we turn to? So we got in our small group of social media managers on our team, and we talked to each other. We said, what do you think? We bounced ideas off of each other. One of our interns who was expecting to graduate in May, he was one of those people, said, I think it would be great if we could recognize people in Kyle Field. Kyle Field is our football stadium. It's the 6th largest stadium in the world. So it is very kind of ceremonial. It is kind of a big deal. It is something students care a lot about. And so he said, I think it'd be great to somehow put Kyle Field in this conversation. How can we use Kyle Field? And so what we came up with was to put each graduate's name on our Jumbotron in our stadium for about 3 to 5 seconds each, and just let them scroll with a camera on it, live streaming it all day. It was a lot of work on our team. It was a lot of hours, obviously 7 straight hours, but we had about 4,000 concurrent viewers the entire time. We had people who watched more than just for their name. We had people just watching for hours at a time, just taking it in. Basically what it was, you can see in this tweet that I included, it is just showing the screen and running through names with some music being played by our band over the speakers. And this is something, honestly, that could only be successful with social media. I can't think of another way to do something like this without the crazy world of social media involved. That's what's beautiful about social media. It lets us experiment and try weird new things that don't, on the formula of it doesn't sound like it will work. But the stats that we got were very nice. But even better than that were the conversation around it, the reception from students. It gave us something to give to students to recognize them, and at the same time, it gave them that Instagrammable moment, sort of, or that tweetable moment where they could take a screenshot of their name on the screen and post it on their social media. In lieu of having their diploma, or in lieu of taking pictures of their family in their gown, we had several people watch this with their families and post pictures like that. It still gave them a little bit of a moment with a promise of a future in-person graduation coming up on campus whenever that's safe, but it gave them something in that moment to recognize them in this fun, cool, interesting sort of way. So much so that I think it was successful, because following this, we had multiple universities reach out and say, hey, what went well? What didn't go well? How can we do this and improve upon it, or do this in a way that makes sense for our school, this and that. So we saw multiple universities reach out to us and do this following us in their football stadium, which I think is a huge success, helping out other schools that way. But also after this, we saw a lot of students saying, hey, I'm graduating next year. I expect the same thing from me. Even though they are expecting to walk the stage in a normal graduation ceremony, they still want to see their name in Kyle Field. So it's that sort of conversation. It's those responses that show us, hey, we think we did a good job with this. This was a win. It definitely could have gone the other way, because again, I don't ever want to do another 7-hour live stream in my life, but it worked out this time and it made a lot of people happy. And so we think that's a win, especially for a year when so much was taken away from students and it was so hard on a lot of people. I think this was a big one for us.
Amazing. Nick, that was fantastic. I'm going to throw it over to Kelsey. Speaking of super engaged fan bases, I know that Nick, you guys have one of the most engaged audiences in higher ed, and now we're going to throw it up to Boston. Of course, very engaged fans, very passionate fans up in Boston. Kelsey, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome, thank you. And you're good, you can see my screen?
Yes, all good.
Awesome. Well, so, ooh, I'm sorry. We are in the wrong, there we go. Okay. I am manning social and digital for the Boston Red Sox, which typically in a regular season would mean that I'm covering 162 games across our social channels, 81 home games, really promoting the baseball team itself, 25 men on the roster, the team performance, and everything that has to do with the physical baseball team on the field. In 2020, I was left in a bit of a lurch, our whole content team, when baseball activity was essentially halted in mid-March due to the pandemic. And we didn't pick up any baseball activity whatsoever until early July, when we got back to workouts, and the season started officially in late July with 60 total games, 30 home games, and not a single fan in the ballpark, just some cardboard cutouts. And so we had several months where essentially the product that we promote, that we showcase on social, that informs all of our content strategy, just did not exist. And so we were essentially trying to create content out of thin air, and how do you showcase these players and what this team is about and what is our social strategy. And you know, it really rattles you in the start. And so for us, we had to take a step back and think about our social is typically our brand voice. It is ticket sales, it is sponsorship, it's the official news and word on the Boston Red Sox coverage of the games, and standard customer service. And so then we were like, okay, but now we have this platform where we can share information about the pandemic to help keep people safe, but also, are we a resource for our fans? And can we also help be a little bit of a distraction and provide some levity in these times when everyone is now homeschooling, working from home, you know, dealing with a lot of heavy and kind of chaotic things. And so we were able, in that time from March to early July, when we truly didn't have the product to market, we were able to actually increase some of our engagement in different ways and lead the league in total engagements on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, which you can take for a grain of salt. We are a big market team, so we are fortunate that we get a lot of engagement anyway. I will preface it that way. But we were very happy and proud of the results we had. So that kind of started early in the pandemic, where we changed our logo, the official logo of the Boston Red Sox. We split the avatars on all of our social channels. Typically, we have the two hanging socks next to each other, and we socially distanced them. And it's something we did in a very low-key way. We tweeted it out, and we just flipped the avatar on each social channel. And people were writing articles about it. The engagement was crazy. Everyone's screenshotting our avatar and bio and resharing it. And that kind of set the tone for us, you know, moving forward in the coming months. And again, we have about 9 million followers through our different social channels, and you know, an opportunity, an engaged community. And, you know, we're not going to suddenly be the CDC or the Department of Public Health. We're not medical professionals. We know how to tweet and take photos and post videos. And so we tried to figure out the best way for the Red Sox to contribute to the Boston and New England communities and share important messaging. And we are a baseball team, and that's why people follow us. So how do we give it the Red Sox flavor? So it's infographics, updating our bio, creating a DIY tutorial on how to turn your old jersey into a homemade mask, showcasing our players when they return to workouts in masks, and, you know, being socially distant, showcasing sort of how we created a safe environment to encourage that for everyone. And this is certainly a departure from what we typically are and do on social, but we felt it was an obligation and important to get this out, and we're continuing to do this. And then the second piece of this is, you know, normally we have nearly 38,000 people at a game, and suddenly our only way to communicate is via digital. We don't have any interaction at the ballpark. And so we tried to give people opportunity and create the community online. And so on Snapchat, that was creating snap lenses or AR portals where people could actually sort of transform, bring themselves to Fenway. We launched that on what would have been our opening day and saw a lot of success there with the use of the lenses and made multiple versions. We took advantage of Facebook groups. We have an official Facebook group. We obviously have an official Facebook page, which has a much larger following, but the Facebook group like audience and members are incredibly engaged. And we ran a couple different brackets, their favorite player, top clutch moment, and things got heated in the comments, which was honestly fantastic to see that sort of engagement and conversation happening. So we had a lot of fun with that, and I think that's something that we can continue to evolve and keep the conversation going. And then just to quickly touch on IG story, Instagram's a place a little bit harder to have that one-to-one true engagement outside of like DMs and a few comment replies. So, on World Gratitude Day, which was a little bit later in the 60-game season, we partnered with WorkHuman to just ask, what do you want to see in our IG story? We'll give it to you today, all day today, whatever it is, and just using the question sticker. We also ran similar brackets, and, we were able to create some engagement that was a little bit more like being your friend on social as opposed to being the official Boston Red Sox. Here's your trade news and your transactions. So we got to have some fun with that. And then finally, just to highlight some of the one-to-one engagement on Twitter, this is a big shout out to our designers who this was not easy on them, but Wallpaper Wednesdays, we really blew those out this year. And I know it doesn't sound groundbreaking to have, post some wallpapers, but like the second week of the pandemic, as of the shutdown of the pandemic, when everyone's home, we were just looking for ways to engage people, and we're just like, we'll do custom wallpapers for people, and we'll just ask what they want. You figure whatever early on, 2 o'clock on a Wednesday, like you'll get a few hundred replies, it'll be fun, whatever. And we got thousands of replies and requests, and they went all through the night. And we locked down a couple hours where we're like, we'll do these now, and then next week we'll pick up. But we got to the point we started doing that every week with different custom ideas and concepts. And we would wake up on a Wednesday morning and people would already be tweeting at us, what time is this happening? When can I get mine? Like, on it. It was incredible. And so we had a little bit more fun with sort of the fun design components, and did just a design blitz one day where we said, our designers are on call all day. What's the weird stuff you want? Like, we're here, we're not playing baseball, let's do something. And so here's an example of just, a very niche and bizarre thing. And there are plenty of similar concepts. They want one of our pictures with One Direction, but when Zayn was still with One Direction, and specifically having our picture stand next to Harry Styles. And so, we delivered, and we got to have a lot of fun with this. And it's a reminder that one-to-one engagement, outside of just ticketing customer service and things like that, is still so critical. You can really make a fan's day just by replying to them and interacting in that way. And all of these concepts, these tactics are in a lot of ways small things that all made a big difference. And while it was really to get us through 2020, these are things you will still see from us in 2021 and are being baked into our strategy. So we're excited to push forward with more of it.
I love it. You guys, these examples are incredible. Clearly, they were all a huge success on social media, but how do you measure that? I think, Kelsey, you got kind of creative there at the end talking about those Facebook groups and the conversation that you were starting to see. So how are you guys measuring success right now on social media? Kelsey, we'll start with you.
Yeah, for us, I mean, a big thing is obviously impressions, retweets, reshares, the standard stuff that obviously is important, but also speaking from experience, I've had a lot of things that maybe the impressions, numbers, retweets are through the roof, and you're like, oh, this is great, but it's for the wrong reason. So sentiment and the conversation surrounding something are also really critical. I've had to push send on a number of announcements that maybe aren't so popular, or sent some bad social posts out into the universe that maybe I shouldn't have. And, you know, those will go viral too. And that's, you know, those are numbers, but it's really what is the conversation around it. And sometimes, you know, and contextually, sometimes you might not be seeing a ton of reshares or impressions, but the feedback is really positive from the right people, or even in our case, if you have players resharing that content, that's also really valuable too. So that's sort of how we view it. It's a bit anecdotal for each individual social post.
Yep. Sarah and Nick, how about you?
Yeah, I think Kelsey, oh, I'm so sorry, you go ahead.
I should have called on somebody. Sarah, you go ahead.
Yeah, so Kelsey mentioned a lot of the big ones. One thing that I'll add, which is a little different for National Geographic, of course, is, you know, traffic to the website through social, which is really important. And also, you know, social being like the very top of the funnel in hopefully converting these super fans and people who engage with us to, you know, lifelong subscribers. Email signups is one really great way for us to kind of track, you know, who are we getting in that want to stay, want to stick around and want more from us. So I'll mention those, but then the other thing is, like, sometimes engagement is misleading, and sometimes there's things that you do in certain tactics where the numbers aren't the only thing that are important. And I know on our dress rehearsal, one of the things we mentioned was how Twitter threads are really sneaky. You know, it may not look like there's that much engagement, but it's split up between an entire thread. And if you look into it a little more, you might see that, oh wow, these impressions are really racking up. So it's always interesting to me, you know, what else you can find when you dig even deeper. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to measure success, and ultimately it's all about what is your actual goal, and knowing how each of these different things plays into what goals you're trying to reach, which obviously is very similar because we all work in social, but also very different depending on what kind of brand or what kind of account you manage.
Nick?
Yeah, I think they took the words right out of my mouth. It is a mix of qualitative and quantitative. It's great to have high impressions, and it's great to get a lot of retweets, but it's the way you measure success is if you're taking care of your community. For us, like I said, it's kind of like managing a small town. People might be having crises online, and they're tweeting at us about them, and it's something that we can solve pretty easily. It's not that big of a deal. It's making sure we're taking care of those communities, and the conversation on our posts are healthy and things that we can help out with if they need help. It's also looking back to maybe last year around this time and see how events went then and comparing those metrics to today, and seeing if we are coming up with unique experiences to take place of the in-person events that were happening. It's being quick on your feet and adapting and figuring out ways to make up for those missed experiences for college students and our entire audience, really.
Awesome. Great answer.
Nice. I love that. I wanted to ask a question. Before I do, just again, thank you all for joining this session. And I want to invite everybody to review, and of course, everybody who's on, to join our Social Pros channel in the Slack community. That will be the place for social media inspiration and everything well beyond today. But the question I wanted to ask you guys, and maybe we can even continue this conversation also on Slack, is what questions do you have for each other in terms of what you've now seen, I guess twice now in each other's campaigns, or just beyond that? What questions do you have for each other?
I have one. Oh no.
Kelsey, let's start with you, Kelsey. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I had a question for Nick that's a little bit more about. I was thinking about it as he was going through. It's a little bit more about your general social strategy. But do you see your accounts as more for your current student body, or a little bit of for prospective students, and almost like a recruiting tool in a way? Is there some element of that?
Yeah, I think there's a nice mix of it, and the benefit that we have of social media is that you can be across a bunch of platforms. And so those platforms tend to skew, some skew younger, some skew older. So we can talk to maybe prospective students on Instagram while taking care of our our alumni on Facebook. Maybe Twitter's a nice mix of those. We do try to put different types of content in different places for those different audiences. So that definitely is something that goes into our strategy. And we're just in a lot of places on social media, I guess. Not TikTok yet, which would honestly be a great place for prospective students. Maybe someday, but not right now.
Sarah?
Yeah, so my question is, how do either of you deal with or approach the constant barrage of new features and new tools that are available on social? How do you decide which ones to run with or which ones to skip? And are you doing okay? Because there's a lot going on right now on social.
I can hit on that real quick since I just mentioned TikTok. It comes down to bandwidth for us. Like, can we stay sane and manage what we have while adding other things? And then also, do fleets make sense for Texas A&M University? Like, are we already doing what we'd be putting there somewhere else for the same audience? Is it worth the extra work to hit that same audience with the same information, or is it someone different? So it is honestly each new thing, each new week, it seems like, is a case-by-case basis to see if it works for us and if we can honestly, if we even have the time to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel the same, you know, bandwidth wise, and it's just like, if we're going to do this, can we truly do it well? You know, what audience is here? It's very important for us to be reaching younger audiences. Baseball tends to skew a little bit older, and we're always looking for opportunities to connect with younger audiences. But another piece is, I always feel like we need to give it a little bit of time, because I feel like every social platform forms its own culture over time. And it's like, you can look at fleets right now and be like, how is this different than IG Story or Snapchat? But years ago, it was like, when IG Story came out, you're like, well, this is just Snapchat. Like, why do I care? And it's like, now they are two very different cultures, audiences, ways of posting and approaches, and we have different strategies for those two platforms. So like right now, I'm kind of like, let's wait it out on fleets, see what forms there and what happens. So that is always a tricky thing for us, you know. And TikTok, it's like TikTok culture, even the last like year and a half, has evolved differently. And I mean, things change daily on TikTok, but it's just finding and making sure that we are creating. I also don't want to just like repurpose random content if it's not right for a certain platform. So it's, I mean, it's always tricky, but we're doing the best we can.
Have either of y'all's accounts fleeted?
Once.
We did it once.
Yeah, we did a Hello Fleets post.
Nice. It's our mascot's birthday on Sunday, so we were like, we'll try this out with a cute picture of our dog mascot and say it's her birthday on Sunday, just as a reminder.
That's fun.
For fun.
Yeah, I think it's really important just to always, like, every time there's a new thing, we always think about, is this for who we're looking for? You know, is this going to help us get to who we want to reach? And just trust your gut. I think there's so much to social that you can obviously and should use data to, you know, inform your strategy, but there's a lot that you learn and pick up on that isn't captured in, you know, those kind of quantitative data sets. So it's all of the things you learn over time, those nuances of the different cultures of different platforms, and the mindsets and reactions and sentiment that you get from your audience that can help you decide. So I always think that's a good way to remind people that there's a bit of gut that goes into deciding things on social as well.